Maleficent is so good in KH2, nearly beating out her KH1 counterpart for me from pure fun factor. In KH1, she had power over worlds, a heartless army, villainous cohorts, and a sick castle looming over the conquered home of the Final Fantasy gang. Then some kid with a stick showed up and said, "Hey, but what if?" and then killed her. Before that, Sora had systematically destroyed her villain council, and afterwards he resets the worlds back to a more or less peaceful state. Which is why Maleficent's revival and return to evil schemes in KH2 is so funny. With 9 years of work all gone, she spends the first half of the game attempting to claw her way back to the top, either by reclaiming old allies or developing a new army of Heartless, something she continuously self-sabotages. Because the one thing Maleficent does still have from her KH1 days is her arrogance. Despite being back to square one plus one Pete, Maleficent still seems to think she's the queen of the multiverse. It's so funny watching her be indignant over things like the Villain Council not instantly returning to work with her again, or how she forgot that Oogie Boogie was freaking dead. When she revives him, he's constantly bugging her, and by the end, she's so entitled that she just up and leaves him to die, abandoning her plan to turn Sandy Claus into a Heartless out of spite. She's so petty, I love it.
Revenge before pleasure, after all.
Getting frustrated by the smallest of things, all while watching from the sidelines and leaving it to Pete. She's so low on resources, she has to work with literal children and hires the freaking Gullwings to do reconnaissance, who immediately quit because even they think she's a loser. Her first attack on a world is motivated by wanting to get a new castle, for crying out loud. It's great. Combined with the perfect synergy of sinister and silliness that Maleficent and Pete's voice actors provide, and you have a charming recurring thread for KH2's lighthearted first half. She and Pete are the perfect faces for the Heartless as a force in KH2, as they embody what the Heartless are now to Sora, a never-ending nuisance.
What a hag!
I've seen a lot of people upset by Maleficent's downgrade in villain status, but I think it's so cool because it's a natural consequence of her failure back in KH1, as well as an extension of who she always was. She abandoned Jafar and Hades and was equally dismissive of both. She refused to properly communicate her plan to Hook, and if Ansem is to be believed, she was consumed by the Heartless whom she thought she had full control over. Besides that, the way she spoke and generally carried herself made it clear that she looked down on others. After being on top for so long, you can tell she's just not capable of starting over. It makes sense, and it's what I think allows her to be funny without being a joke. Even so, I would hardly call her portrayal cynical, because it all pays off in the Battle of Hollow Bastion as she confronts Saïx. There's this super cool visual used where Maleficent calls upon the Heartless, but can only summon the small soldiers from KH1. Yet when Saïx summons them, he calls upon the updated soldier design from KH2, commenting that the Heartless will obey the strongest. It's like when in the presence of the organization, only the weakest of Heartless will choose to emerge for her. It's such a cool visual to communicate the difference in power, and leads to a genuinely great moment as Maleficent actually humbles herself and helps the trio to escape. Of course, with her signature sass, which really sticks out given how she's been the entire game, and is a cool way to show that the tone of KH2's first half has shifted. After this moment, she no longer invades the worlds with Pete, which is probably why the organization starts to get more involved in the first place, only for Maleficent to appear at the end of the game as she and Pete fend off a wave of Heartless, all for the sake of allowing Sora the chance to defeat the organization once and for all. In the end, Maleficent leaves KH2 confident, and of course as arrogant as ever, but this time as a useful force against the bad guys, even if it's only in cutscenes. While she may have been more threatening in KH1, I find her role in KH2 of equal value through her fun and charm. And besides, how cool is it that Maleficent, of all characters, gets to embody the Disney World character's final push against Organization 13, beginning and bookending that struggle that is present throughout the second half. Really, only two things hold her back from being entirely better than KH1 for me. One is the lack of a boss fight. How cool would it have been to curb stomp Maleficent with a reaction command to really sell how strong Sora has become? And two, it's that we don't really follow up on her and Pete in the credits. Did she get her new castle that she wanted, or did Xemnas destroy it? Tell me, dang it! Ah well, at the very least, I always have the manga. I finally find my own castle, and those worthless Keyblade wielders obliterated it!
Well, what did you expect? It was Organization 13's castle. If he beats Organization 13, it disappears. That's just how the cookie crumbles.
Mark my words, I will have my castle, a large, lavish, luxurious, extravagant castle filled with evil, a magnificent palace worthy of my greatness.
What happened to world domination?
Of course, that's it. I could sue those Keyblade wielders for reparations. I can win this.
Now just calm down.